You stand at the edge of everything you've ever known. Not metaphorically, not philosophically, literally. Right now, in this exact moment, you exist at a boundary so profound that most people spend their entire lives never recognizing it's there. You think you understand infinity. You've heard the word 1,000 times. You've seen it scrawled as a lazy figure eight in mathematics textbooks, tattooed on wrists as symbols of endless love, whispered in poetry about eternal souls. But you don't understand it. You can't. Because infinity isn't something the human mind was designed to grasp. Let me show you why. Close your eyes for a moment. Actually, keep them open, because what I'm about to tell you requires you to see differently. Imagine you're holding the universe in your hands. All of it. Every star that has ever burned, every galaxy that has ever spiraled through the cosmic dark, every atom that has ever vibrated with existence. Now count them. Go ahead. Start counting. 1, 2, 3. 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000. Keep going. Count every particle, every quantum fluctuation, every moment of time that has elapsed since the beginning. How long would it take you? Forever, you think. It would take forever. But here's the thing that will shatter everything you believe you know. Forever isn't long enough. Because even if you counted every single thing in our observable universe, and there are approximately 10 to the power of 80 atoms, a number so large it makes a trillion look like a rounding error. Even if you tallied every one of those, you wouldn't have touched infinity. You wouldn't even have scratched its surface. You wouldn't have made a dent. You wouldn't have moved the needle by the smallest conceivable fraction. You would still be at exactly zero. Precisely, mathematically, absolutely zero. That's not just big, that's not just vast, that's something else entirely. That's a concept that breaks the architecture of human cognition. Now, let me break. Something else. The Big Bang did not bang. There was no explosion, there was no sound, there was no outward blast from a central point into pre-existing empty space. Everything you've been told, every documentary you've watched with its dramatic rendering of a cosmic fireball erupting into the void, it's wrong. Not wrong in the sense of being slightly inaccurate, wrong in the sense of being fundamentally, categorically, almost comically misrepresentative of what actually happened. The universe didn't explode into space. Space itself exploded into existence. Do you understand the difference? It's not that matter burst outward into a waiting emptiness, it's that the very concept of outward came into being. The very notion of into was born. There was no before the Big Bang in any conventional sense because time itself was created in that moment. There was nowhere for the universe to expand into because where didn't exist until space began. Think about that. Until your brain starts to hurt. Actually, think about it until your brain stops hurting, because that moment when the pain subsides and gives way to a kind of existential vertigo, that's when you're beginning to understand. But we're not here to talk about the Big Bang, not really. We're here because of a question that's far more dangerous, far more unsettling, far more likely to keep you awake at night staring at your ceiling and wondering if anything you've ever believed about reality is actually true. We're here to ask, what if infinity isn't the end? What if there's something beyond it? Your mind rejects this immediately. Of course there's nothing beyond infinity. Infinity, by definition, is endless. It's the absolute limit. It's the conceptual ceiling beyond which nothing can exist. To suggest something beyond infinity is like asking what's north of the North Pole. It's a category error. It's nonsense. Except it isn't. In the last 100 years, mathematics has discovered something most people don't know about. Something that doesn't make it into popular science documentaries. Something so profoundly strange that even mathematicians sometimes speak about it in hushed, almost reverent tones. There are different sizes of infinity, multiple infinities, an infinite number of infinities, in fact. Some infinities are larger than others, demonstrably, provably, mathematically larger. There's a whole hierarchy of them, stretching upward into realms of abstraction that make the observable universe look like a grain of sand. Let me say that again, slower this time, so the full weight of it lands. There are infinities so large that regular infinity, the infinity you thought was the biggest thing possible, is nothing compared to them. Absolutely nothing. Zero. The same way that counting every atom in the universe doesn't move you closer to infinity. Counting to regular infinity doesn't move you closer to these larger infinities. Your brain is trying to reject this right now. I can feel it. You're thinking this must be semantic trickery, mathematical wordplay, abstract nonsense that doesn't correspond to anything real. But it's not. This is as real as gravity, as verified as the rotation of planets, as fundamental as the existence of atoms. A mathematician named Georg Cantor proved it in the late 1800s, and his proof was so disturbing, so reality-shattering, that it drove him to madness. Literally, he died in a psychiatric institution, his mind fractured by the implications of what he'd discovered. What did he see that broke him? He saw that infinity has layers, depths, dimensions that extend beyond comprehension. He saw that the number of counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, continuing forever, is a different size than the number of points on a line. Both are infinite, but one infinity is larger. He saw that the set of all possible sets is larger than any set you can conceive. He saw that no matter how big an infinity you imagine, there's always a bigger one. Always, without exception, without end. There is no largest infinity. The hierarchy goes up forever, and that forever is itself infinite, and that infinity of infinities is transcended by yet another level, and on and on and on, through layers upon layers upon layers that would take more than a lifetime to even properly name. Are you feeling it yet? That sensation in your chest like the floor is dropping away? That's not anxiety, that's your mind touching something it was never meant to touch. But we're still just at the surface, because here's where it gets truly, incomprehensibly strange. Physicists are beginning to suspect that this mathematical abstraction, this hierarchy of infinities, might actually be physically real. Not just a theoretical curiosity, not just a quirk of numbers, but something that describes the actual structure of reality. The universe might be infinite, not in the casual way people say infinite when they mean really big. Infinite in the precise, technical, mathematical sense, extending forever in all directions. Never ending, no edge, no boundary, no outside. If you could travel in a straight line for eternity, you would never reach a wall. You would never loop back to where you started. You would just keep going, through endless galaxies, endless stars, endless planets, endless space, forever. And if the universe is infinite, then something impossible becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Somewhere out there, impossibly far away, beyond trillions upon trillions of light years, beyond distances so vast they make astronomical numbers look quaint, there is another you, an exact duplicate, same body, same memories, same thoughts, same life, reading these exact words at this exact moment, because in an infinite universe with finite possible arrangements of atoms, every possible configuration must repeat. Must, not might, must. It's not probability anymore, it's certainty. But there's not just one other you, there are infinite other yous. Some identical, some slightly different, some living lives unimaginably different from yours, where you made different choices, spoke different words, loved different people. Every possible version of your life is playing out somewhere in the infinite expanse. Every road not taken is being traveled. Every version of yourself that could exist does exist. Does that comfort you? Does it terrify you? Does it make you question whether the choices you make actually matter, or whether they were just one thread in an infinite tapestry where every possible thread already exists? Hold that feeling, because it gets worse. Some cosmologists believe we live in a multiverse, not just an infinite universe, but an infinite number of universes, each one a complete cosmos unto itself, each one with its own laws of physics, its own constants, its own fundamental structure. Some of these universes are similar to ours. Some are wildly different. Some have stars and galaxies. Some are empty voids. Some last for trillions of years. Some collapse microseconds after they form. Some have life. Some have consciousness. Some have civilizations that rise and fall without anyone ever knowing they existed. And these universes aren't just theoretical possibilities. Under certain interpretations of quantum mechanics, interpretations taken seriously by serious physicists, they're real. Every time a quantum event occurs, every time a particle could go left or right, the universe splits. Both outcomes happen. One version continues with the particle going left. Another version branches off with it going right. This happens constantly, everywhere, all the time. Every quantum interaction spawns new universes. The number of universes is growing at a rate so incomprehensibly fast that the phrase exponential growth doesn't begin to capture it. Right now, as you read this sentence, the multiverse is branching into versions where you finish reading and versions where you stop. Versions where you understand what I'm saying and versions where the words wash over you without meaning. Versions where you exist and versions where you never existed at all because some quantum event in the past went differently, and the chain of causality that led to your birth never occurred. This is not science fiction. This is one of the leading interpretations of quantum mechanics, supported by mathematics, consistent with observations, taken seriously by Nobel Prize winners. Are you still with me? Or have I lost you already? Not because the words are too complex, but because the implications are too vast. Let me bring you back to something simpler, something you can hold in your mind. A question, a single, straightforward question that will serve as the thread we'll follow through this entire journey. If infinity is endless, how can there be something beyond it? This question seems to contradict itself. And yet the answer is not only yes, but yes in ways more strange and wonderful than you've ever imagined. Yes in ways that will make you reconsider what you thought existence meant. Yes in ways that connect to the deepest mysteries of physics, consciousness, time, space, and reality itself. I'm going to take you on a journey through the landscape of infinity. We'll start with numbers, because that's where humans first encountered this beast. We'll move through space, exploring what it means for the universe to have no edge. We'll dive into time, confronting the possibility that the past and future extend forever. We'll venture into the quantum realm, where infinity becomes not just a size but a process, a multiplicity, a constant branching of possibilities. We'll climb the hierarchy of mathematical infinities, those towering levels of abstraction that drove Cantor mad. We'll explore the physics of black holes, where infinity stops being a metaphor and becomes a physical reality that breaks our equations. We'll contemplate consciousness itself and whether the experience, being alive, contains infinities within it. And then, after we've journeyed through all of that, after we've expanded our minds to their breaking point, we'll ask the final question: what lies beyond? What could possibly transcend infinity itself? The answer will not comfort you. It will not provide closure. It will not tie everything up in a neat philosophical package. Because the truth is stranger than comfort. The truth is vaster than closure. The truth is that we live in a reality so profound, so bottomless, so endlessly layered, that every answer spawns new questions, and every horizon we reach reveals another horizon beyond it, and the act of seeking understanding might itself be infinite. But before we begin this journey properly, I need you to do something. I need you to let go of the need for things to make intuitive sense. Let go of the requirement that reality conform to human-scale expectations. Let go of the idea that the universe owes you comprehensibility, because where we're going, intuition is not just useless, it's actively misleading. Where we're going, common sense is the enemy of truth. You were born on a small planet orbiting an average star in an ordinary galaxy. Your senses evolved to hunt prey, find mates, avoid predators, and navigate a world of medium-sized objects moving at medium speeds. You were not designed to understand the very large or the very small. You were not equipped to grasp the infinite or the infinitesimal. Your brain is a survival machine, not a truth-finding machine. And yet, somehow, through mathematics and physics and relentless curiosity, humans have managed to glimpse truths that transcend their biological limitations. What I'm about to share with you represents the edge of that glimpse, the frontier of human understanding, the place where knowledge fades into mystery, where equations break down, where even the greatest minds can only gesture toward truths they cannot fully articulate. Ready? No, nobody ever is. But that's okay. The abyss doesn't wait for you to be ready. It simply opens, and you either look into it or you don't. Let's start with something that seems simple: counting. You learn to count as a child. 1, 2, 3, 4. It seemed natural, obvious. You could count your fingers, count your toys, count the days until your birthday. But even then, at that young age, someone probably asked you, "What's the biggest number?" And you, being clever, probably said something like, 1,000,000, or 1,000,000,000, or if you were particularly precocious, infinity. But here's what they didn't tell you, what they couldn't tell you because you were too young to understand. Infinity isn't a number. It's not the biggest number. It's not a number at all. It's a concept, a process. The idea that you can always go further, always add one more, always continue. No matter what number you reach, no matter how large, you can add one to it. You can double it. You can raise it to its own power. There is no end to the sequence. This seems straightforward until you really think about it, until you confront what it means. Because if you can always add one more, then the process of counting never completes. Never. Not in 1,000,000 years, not in 1,000,000,000,000 years, not in the entire lifetime of the universe. You could start counting at the moment of the Big Bang and continue until the last star burns out, and you would not finish. You would not even be close. You would be exactly as close to finishing as you were when you started, infinitely far away. Now imagine this. Imagine someone else starts counting at the same time as you, but they count only the even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, while you count everything, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Common sense tells you that you're counting twice as many numbers as they are. Every number they count, you count, plus all the odd numbers in between. So when you both stop, except you never stop, but hypothetically, you should have counted twice as many numbers as them. But you haven't. You've counted exactly the same number. Both infinite, both the same size of infinite, because for every number they count, you can pair it with one of your numbers. 2 pairs with 2, 4 pairs with 4, 6 pairs with 6. The pairing never runs out. Both lists go on forever. Both are the same size. This is already weird. This already violates intuition. But it's about to get much weirder. Now imagine someone else counting in a completely different way. They're not counting numbers, they're counting points on a line. Imagine a line segment, say from 0 to 1. How many points are on that line? Infinite, obviously. But what size infinite? The same size as the counting numbers. No, it's bigger. Impossibly, demonstrably, provably bigger. There are more points on a line segment 1 inch long than there are counting numbers extending to infinity. Cantor proved this. He showed that you cannot create a pairing between the points on a line and the counting numbers. No matter how clever you are, no matter what system you devise, there will always be points left over. Always. The infinity of points on a line is larger than the infinity of counting numbers. This broke mathematics. Not in the sense that it was wrong, but in the sense that it shattered a fundamental assumption. Infinity, it turned out, was not a monolithic thing. It had structure, it had levels. And those levels were just the beginning. Cantor went further. He asked, what about the set of all possible sets of numbers? What about the set of all possible functions? What about the set of all possible geometries? All possible spaces? All possible mathematical structures? Each time he asked, he found a larger infinity, a new level in the hierarchy, and he proved, rigorously mathematically beyond any doubt, that this hierarchy never ends. There is no largest infinity. For any infinity you can conceive, there is a larger one, always. Imagine a ladder extending upward forever. Each rung is an infinity. Each rung is infinitely far from the next. And the ladder itself has infinitely many rungs. And there are infinitely many such ladders. And those ladders exist in a space of infinitely many dimensions. And that space is just one among infinite spaces. On and on and on. Layers within layers within layers, infinities within infinities within infinities. Cantor saw this hierarchy, he mapped it, he gave it structure and meaning, and it terrified him. Not because it was complex. He was a mathematician, complexity didn't scare him. It terrified him because of what it implied about the nature of reality. If mathematics, pure abstract mathematics, contained structures this vast, this incomprehensible, what did that say about the universe? What did it say about existence? He began to have breakdowns. He questioned whether the hierarchy was real or whether he'd discovered something forbidden, something humans weren't meant to know. Other mathematicians attacked his work, called it meaningless, said it was playing with abstractions that didn't correspond to anything real. The criticism destroyed him. He died broken, uncertain whether his greatest discovery was genius or madness. But he was right. Every criticism was disproven. Every attack was refuted. His hierarchy stands today as one of the most profound discoveries in the history of mathematics, and slowly, gradually, physicists are realizing that it might not just be abstract. It might describe reality. Because here's the thing. The universe doesn't care about your intuition. It doesn't care whether something seems reasonable or comprehensible. It simply is what it is. And what it is might be far stranger than you ever imagined. Astronomers look out into space and see galaxies, billions of them, trillions of them, each one containing billions of stars. The numbers are so vast they lose meaning. 1 trillion galaxies sounds impressive, until you realize that 1 trillion is just a number, just a finite quantity, barely different from 1 million in the grand scheme of things. Both are nothing compared to infinity. So astronomers ask, does it end? Is there an edge to space? If you traveled far enough, would you reach a boundary, a wall, a place where space simply stops? The evidence suggests no. Every measurement, every observation, every theoretical model points to the same conclusion. Space is either infinite or so large that the difference doesn't matter. If you could travel faster than light, which you can't, but hypothetically, if you could travel at infinite speed in any direction for any amount of time, you would never reach an edge. You would just keep finding more galaxies, more stars, more space, forever. And if that's true, then all those implications I mentioned earlier become real. The infinite copies of you, the infinite variations, every possible configuration of atoms playing out somewhere in the endless expanse. You, right now, reading this, are just one version among infinite versions, experiencing one life among infinite lives, making choices that matter and don't matter simultaneously, because every other choice is also being made by some other you in some other place. Does that rob your life of meaning, or does it give you a strange kind of freedom, knowing that somewhere in the infinite vastness, every path exists? But we're not stopping there. Because space is just one kind of infinity. Time is another. Does time go on forever? Did it have a beginning? Will it have an end? The Big Bang suggests a beginning, yes, but what happened before the Big Bang? Nothing, cosmologists say. Time itself began with the Big Bang. There is no before. But that just rephrases the question without answering it. Why did time begin? What triggered it? What set the initial conditions? And if time had a beginning, will it have an end? Will the universe eventually run down, every star burning out, every black hole evaporating, until nothing remains but cold, empty space expanding forever into darkness? Some models say yes. The universe will end in heat death, infinite time, infinite space, infinite cold, no energy gradients left to power any process, no stars, no planets, no life, just endless, featureless emptiness persisting forever. Eternity as a tomb. Other models say no. The universe could collapse back in on itself in a big crunch, all of space contracting back to a point, a reverse Big Bang that ends everything. Or it could spawn new universes cycling eternally through birth and death. Each Big Bang followed by a big crunch, followed by another Big Bang, on and on, forever. Or, and this is where it gets truly strange, time might not be what you think it is at all. It might not flow. It might not have a direction. It might be an illusion, a quirk of consciousness, a way your brain organizes sensory information, but not a fundamental feature of reality. Some physicists argue that all moments of time exist simultaneously, laid out like frames in a film strip. The past, present, and future, all equally real, all coexisting. You feel like time flows because your consciousness moves through the frames, but the frames themselves are static, eternal, unchanging. If that's true, then everything that has ever happened or will ever happen is already fixed, already determined, already existing in the eternal structure of space-time. Your birth, your death, every choice you make, every thought you think, all of it already written into the fabric of reality. Free will becomes an illusion, causality becomes a perspective trick. Existence becomes a four-dimensional sculpture that you experience one thin slice at a time. Is that comforting, terrifying? Does it matter? Because whether time flows or doesn't, whether it's infinite or finite, whether it's real or illusory, you still experience it. You still feel its passage. You still age, still remember the past, still anticipate the future. The subjective experience remains the same regardless of the underlying truth. But the underlying truth matters for what comes next. Because if we're asking whether there's something beyond infinity, we need to understand what infinity means in the context of reality, not just mathematics. We need to know whether the physical universe, space, time, matter, energy, can actually be infinite, or whether infinity is just a useful abstraction, a mathematical convenience that doesn't correspond to anything real. And the answer, as far as we can tell, is that infinity is real. Not just mathematically, but physically. The universe might actually be infinite in extent. Time might actually be infinite in duration. The quantum multiverse might actually generate infinite universes. Infinity isn't just a thought experiment. It's woven into the fabric of existence. Which brings us back to our central question, now sharper, now more urgent. If infinity is real, and if there are different sizes of infinity, and if the hierarchy of infinities extends forever, then what does that mean for reality? What does that mean for existence? What does that mean for you? Are you feeling it now? That vertigo? That sense of the floor dropping away? Good. That means you're beginning to understand. That means the enormity of what we're discussing is starting to sink in. We're not talking about trivia. We're not talking about curiosities. We're talking about the fundamental nature of existence. We're talking about whether the reality you inhabit is finite or infinite, whether your life is one among many or one among infinite many, whether the laws of physics are universal or local, whether consciousness is a fluke or an inevitability. These aren't abstract philosophical questions. They have implications, real implications, practical implications. Because if the universe is infinite, then every possible event that can happen will happen. Somewhere, someone, in some version of reality, including events you think are impossible, including outcomes you think are forbidden, including scenarios you can barely imagine. Infinity doesn't just make things large, it makes them inevitable. It transforms possibility into certainty. It turns the unlikely into the guaranteed. Because in an infinite universe, anything that has a non-zero probability must occur. Not might occur, must occur. And not just once, infinite times. Think about that. Really think about it. Every fear you have will be realized somewhere. Every hope you hold will be fulfilled somewhere. Every dream you've dreamed will be lived somewhere. Every nightmare will come true. Every joy will be experienced. Every tragedy will unfold. Every triumph, every failure, every moment of transcendence and every moment of despair, all of it happening right now in the infinite expanse. Are you still breathing? You should check, because somewhere in the infinite cosmos, a version of you just stopped, and somewhere else, a version of you just took their first breath, and somewhere else, a version of you never existed at all, and somewhere else, you are something so different from human that the word you doesn't even apply. This is what infinity means when it stops being a metaphor and starts being a description of reality. This is what happens when the abstract becomes concrete, when the theoretical becomes actual. And we haven't even touched the deeper layers yet. We haven't discussed the quantum infinities, the mathematical infinities, the infinities hidden inside black holes, the infinities embedded in the structure of space-time itself. We haven't explored what happens when different infinities collide, when they interact, when they create new forms of existence that our language doesn't have words for. But we will. We're going to descend deeper into this abyss. We're going to explore territories of thought that most people never venture into. We're going to confront ideas that don't just challenge your worldview, but obliterate it, rebuild it, then obliterate it again. And through it all, we're going to keep asking, is there something beyond? Can there be? What would it even mean? The answer is waiting, not at the end of this journey, because journeys into infinity have no end, but at every step, in every revelation, in every moment you feel your mind stretching to accommodate something it was never meant to accommodate. You wanted to know about infinity. You wanted to peer beyond the veil. You wanted to understand what exists at the ultimate edge of everything. Be careful, because once you see it, once you really understand what infinity means and what lies beyond it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to thinking the universe is just a big place with a lot of stars. You can't retreat into comfortable ignorance. The abyss, once glimpsed, never lets you go. Are you ready? Of course not. But let's continue anyway. Because the universe doesn't wait for you to be ready. It simply is, in all its infinite, impossible, incomprehensible glory. And somewhere in that infinity, there's truth. Truth so vast it makes human knowledge look like a candle in the dark. Truth so profound it makes everything you thought mattered seem trivial. But also truth so beautiful, so elegant, so perfectly structured, that encountering it, even for a moment, is worth every ounce of existential dread it brings. The journey begins now, not toward infinity, through it, beyond it, into territories of existence that language fails to capture, but mathematics reveals, into the space between what is and what could be, into the question that haunts every physicist, every mathematician, every philosopher who has ever stared into the night sky and wondered, what else is there? The answer will break you, but it will also remake you. Because understanding infinity, truly understanding it, changes you. It has to. You cannot comprehend the infinite and remain who you were. The old you, with your finite concerns and bounded perspectives, dies. Something new emerges, something that has touched the edge of everything and survived. So here we stand, you and I, at the threshold. Behind us, the comfortable world of finite things. Ahead, the incomprehensible vastness of the infinite. And beyond that, though it seems impossible, though it seems contradictory, though it seems to violate the very meaning of words, something else, something more, something that makes infinity itself seem small. Take a breath. Let it out, slowly. Feel the weight of existence pressing down on you. Feel the vastness opening up inside you. Feel the boundaries of your mind stretching, straining, beginning to crack. This is what it feels like to stand at the edge of everything. This is what it means to ask the question that cannot be fully answered but must be asked anyway. Is there something beyond infinity? The journey into that question is about to begin, and nothing will ever be the same. The universe is not what you see when you look up at the night sky, those pinpricks of light scattered across the darkness like diamonds on velvet. They're not the universe. They're echoes, ghosts, light that left its source millions, sometimes billions of years ago, traveling through the void to reach your eyes at this exact moment. When you look at a star, you're not seeing it as it is, you're seeing it as it was. You're looking backward through time, and the farther you look, the deeper into the past you see. The most distant galaxies visible to our telescopes appear as they were when the universe was young, when the first stars were just beginning to ignite, when space itself was still hot from the violence of its birth. We see them not as they are now. They might not even exist anymore, but as they were billions of years ago, frozen in light, preserved in the cosmic fossil record. This is the first thing you need to understand. The universe you perceive is already a memory, already history. You live in a present moment that is perpetually out of reach, surrounded by the past in every direction. Look at the sun and you see it as it was 8 minutes ago. Look at the nearest star beyond our solar system, and you see it as it was 4 years ago. Look at the Andromeda Galaxy, and you see it as it was 2.5 million years ago, when your ancestors were barely recognizable as human, shambling across the African savanna with tools of stone. But even this is just the beginning of the strangeness, because when astronomers look deeper, when they peer into the most distant reaches of observable space, They see something that shouldn't be possible. They see the universe itself, not as a collection of objects in space, but as space itself in its infancy. They see the cosmic microwave background, a faint glow of radiation that fills all of space, coming from every direction at once. This isn't light from stars. This is older than stars. This is the afterglow of creation itself, the cooled remnant of the Big Bang, stretched and redshifted by the expansion of space over 13.8 billion years. Imagine standing in a room where every wall is a window, and through each window you see the same thing, the moment of your own birth. That's what astronomers see when they look at the cosmic microwave background. They see the universe when it was 380,000 years old, barely a cosmic infant, still glowing with the heat of its formation. Before this moment, the universe was opaque. Light couldn't travel freely because matter was too hot, too dense, too chaotic. Photons scattered off particles in an endless pinball game, unable to escape. But then, as the universe expanded and cooled, something remarkable happened. Electrons and protons combined to form the first atoms. Space became transparent. Light broke free. And that light has been traveling ever since, cooling as it goes, stretching into longer and longer wavelengths, until now it appears as microwave radiation, invisible to human eyes but detectable by our instruments. This is what we call the observable universe, not the entire universe, the observable universe, the sphere of space from which light has had time to reach us since the Big Bang. Beyond this sphere there is more universe, almost certainly, but we cannot see it, we cannot access it, we cannot know what's there. The light from those regions hasn't had time to reach us yet, and depending on how the universe is expanding, it might never reach us. There might be galaxies out there, entire clusters of galaxies, whole superclusters containing hundreds of thousands of galaxies, existing in regions of space that are forever beyond our view. Now here's where it gets strange. The observable universe has a boundary, the edge of what we can see, but the universe itself might not have a boundary. It might extend forever, infinitely, in all directions, which means that the sphere we can observe, vast as it is, containing hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars. This sphere might be just an infinitesimal fraction of what exists, a bubble in an ocean, a grain of sand on an infinite beach. Think about that for a moment. Everything you've ever seen, everything any human has ever observed, every star catalogued, every galaxy photographed, every cosmic structure mapped, all of it together comprises less than a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what might exist. The observable universe, for all its immensity, might be effectively zero compared to the totality of existence. But it gets stranger still, because the universe isn't just big, it's expanding, and not expanding into anything. Space itself is growing. Galaxies aren't moving through space away from each other, space is expanding between them. Imagine drawing dots on a balloon and then inflating it. The dots move apart not because they're traveling across the balloon's surface, but because the surface itself is stretching. That's what's happening to the universe. Every region of space, everywhere, is expanding. The farther away a galaxy is, the faster it appears to recede from us, not because it's moving faster, but because there's more expanding space between us. This expansion was discovered in the 1920s by Edwin Hubble, who observed that distant galaxies were redshifted, their light stretched to longer wavelengths, in a way that increased with distance. The implications were staggering. If the universe is expanding now, then it must have been smaller in the past. Rewind time far enough and everything would converge to a single point, a singularity, the Big Bang. But here's the part they don't always tell you. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion in space. It was an explosion of space. There was no central point from which everything burst outward. Every point in space was the center. The Big Bang happened everywhere at once. It happened here, where you're sitting right now. It happened in the spot where the sun now burns. It happened in the distant galaxies we see through telescopes. All of space was concentrated into an infinitely dense, infinitely hot state. And then it began expanding, not from a point into surrounding emptiness, but as a totality. The entire universe, infinite or finite, expanding from a state of infinite density. Can you picture that? Probably not, because it violates every intuition you have about how space works. We're used to things expanding into other things. A balloon expands into the surrounding air. A city expands into the surrounding countryside. But the universe doesn't expand into anything. There is no outside for it to expand into. Space itself is all there is, and it's growing, stretching, creating more of itself as time goes on. And the early universe wasn't just hot. It was a furnace where time itself was still learning to move. In the first fractions of a second after the Big Bang, the universe was so hot, so dense, so energetic, that the fundamental forces of nature hadn't yet separated. Gravity, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, they were unified, indistinguishable. Matter and energy were interchangeable. Particles popped in and out of existence. The laws of physics as we know them didn't apply because the conditions were so extreme that our equations break down. Our understanding fails. We can trace the universe's history back to a tiny fraction of a second after the beginning, but that last fraction, the actual moment of creation, remains hidden behind a wall of mathematical impossibility. What happened in that first instant? We don't know. We have theories. Quantum fluctuations in a vacuum, a collision between higher dimensional brains, a black hole forming an apparent universe, a quantum tunneling event from nothing to something. But these are speculations, mathematical possibilities, thought experiments. We have no way to test them, no way to observe conditions that extreme. We can only look at the aftermath and work backward, like detectives arriving at a crime scene millions of years after the fact, trying to reconstruct what happened from faint traces and circumstantial evidence. But even without knowing the exact mechanism, we know the consequences. The universe began, it expanded, it cooled, energy condensed into matter. The first particles formed, quarks and electrons swimming in a plasma of light and energy. As the temperature dropped, quarks combined into protons and neutrons. These fused into the first atomic nuclei during a brief window called Big Bang nucleosynthesis, creating hydrogen and helium in the ratios we still observe today. Then, for hundreds of thousands of years, the universe was too hot for atoms to form. It was an ionized fog, opaque to light. Until finally, at that magical moment 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the temperature dropped enough for electrons to bind to nuclei. Atoms formed, space became transparent, light traveled freely for the first time. And then there was darkness, the cosmic dark ages. For millions of years, the universe contained nothing but diffuse hydrogen and helium gas, slowly collapsing under gravity into denser regions. No stars yet, no galaxies, just clouds of gas pulling themselves together in the dark, growing denser and denser until finally, roughly 100 to 200 million years after the Big Bang, the first stars ignited. These weren't stars like our sun. They were monsters, hundreds of times more massive, burning with ferocious intensity, dying quickly in spectacular explosions that seeded space with heavier elements, carbon, oxygen, iron. the building blocks of planets and life. Those first stars clustered together into the first galaxies. Small, irregular things by modern standards, but bright with the fire of new creation. And they weren't evenly distributed. They clumped along vast filaments of dark matter, invisible scaffolding that shaped the large-scale structure of the universe. Gravity pulled galaxies together into groups and clusters. Those clusters merged into superclusters, and between these vast cosmic structures, great voids appeared, regions of space nearly empty of galaxies, hundreds of millions of light-years across. This is the universe we see today, not uniform, not smooth, but structured, textured, like a cosmic web with bright filaments of galaxies separated by dark voids. And the whole thing is still expanding, still growing, still stretching space between the clusters. But here's the contradiction, the puzzle, one that physicists discovered in the late 1990s and are still trying to understand. The expansion is accelerating, not slowing down as you'd expect from gravity pulling everything back together, but speeding up. Galaxies are moving apart faster and faster. Something is pushing space apart, something we can't see, can't touch, can't directly detect. We call it dark energy, but that's just a name for our ignorance. We don't know what it is. We don't know why it exists. We only know that it makes up roughly 68% of the energy content of the universe. And it's causing space to expand at an ever-increasing rate. Add to this dark matter another invisible component that makes up about 27% of the universe. We know it's there because we can see its gravitational effects. Galaxies rotate too fast to be held together by the gravity of visible matter alone. Galaxy clusters bend light in ways that require much more mass than we can see. Something invisible is out there, exerting gravity, shaping the structure of the cosmos. But we don't know what it is. We've never detected a dark matter particle directly. We've built enormous experiments deep underground, searching for the faint signal of a dark matter particle colliding with ordinary matter. So far, nothing. Just tantalizing hints and ambiguous signals. So when we add it all up, all the atoms in all the stars, all the gas between galaxies, all the planets and asteroids and black holes, all the normal matter we can see and detect makes up less than 5% of the universe. 5%. The rest is mystery, dark matter, dark energy, components we know almost nothing about, except that they dominate the cosmos. We are living in a universe where 95% of the content is invisible and poorly understood. This is the cosmic setup. This is the stage on which our story unfolds. A universe born from unknowable conditions, expanding from a singularity that may or may not have been an actual point. Structured by invisible matter, accelerated by invisible energy, containing billions upon billions of galaxies, each with billions upon billions of stars, extending to the edge of observability and quite possibly far beyond. And despite all this vastness, despite all this complexity, we have managed to understand it, imperfectly, incompletely, but genuinely. We've traced the universe's history back to fractions of a second after its beginning. We've measured its age to a precision of tens of millions of years, a rounding error on cosmic timescales. We've mapped its large-scale structure. We've cataloged its contents. We've determined the values of fundamental constants to astonishing accuracy. But every answer spawns new questions. If the universe began, what came before? If it's expanding, what's it expanding into? If space itself is being created, where does it come from? If the observable universe is just a fraction of the total, what lies beyond our cosmic horizon? And If infinity is real, if the universe truly extends forever, then what does that mean for everything we think we know about existence? These questions don't have comfortable answers. Some of them might not have answers at all, but they point towards something profound, something that challenges the very foundations of how we think about reality. Because if the universe has no edge, then where does it begin? If space extends infinitely in all directions, then the concept of a beginning becomes problematic. The Big Bang can't be a point in space because every point in space is equally valid as the origin. The Big Bang must be a moment in time, but even that becomes strange when you realize that different regions of an infinite universe, separated by vast distances, all experience that same moment simultaneously. How is that possible? How can infinity have a beginning? How can something that extends forever in space have originated from a singular event in time? The answer, if there is one, lies in understanding that space and time are not separate things. They're woven together into a single fabric, space-time, and that fabric can bend, stretch, warp, and even tear in ways that make our everyday intuitions completely unreliable. In the realm of general relativity and quantum mechanics, in the extremes of black holes and the Big Bang, the rules change. Causality becomes fuzzy, time becomes relative, space becomes quantized, and the distinction between past, present, and future might be nothing more than a persistent illusion. We stand at a threshold of understanding. Behind us, centuries of scientific progress that have revealed the universe to be stranger and vaster than our ancestors ever imagined. Ahead of us, questions so profound that answering them will require rethinking the nature of existence itself. And at the center of it all, the question of infinity, not just as a mathematical abstraction, but as a physical reality woven into the fabric of the cosmos. The stage is set, the cosmic landscape revealed. Now we must venture deeper, into the heart of the mystery, where infinity stops being a concept and becomes something you can almost touch. There are places in the universe where physics breaks, not metaphorically, not approximately, but completely, catastrophically, irreversibly breaks. Where the equations we use to describe reality, equations that have predicted everything from the orbit of Mercury to the existence of black holes to the behavior of subatomic particles, these equations suddenly spit out answers that make no sense. Infinities where there should be finite numbers, zeros where there should be quantities, mathematical impossibilities where there should be describable states of matter and energy. We call these places singularities, and they're not theoretical curiosities tucked away in the margins of obscure physics papers. They're real. They exist. Right now, scattered throughout the universe, there are regions of space-time where the laws of physics, as we understand them, simply cease to function. The most familiar singularity is the one hiding at the center of every black hole. Imagine a star, massive, ancient, burning through its nuclear fuel over billions of years. When it finally exhausts its energy, when there's nothing left to counteract the crushing force of its own gravity, it collapses. Not gradually, not gently. In a fraction of a second, all that mass, potentially dozens of times the mass of our Sun, compresses inward. The outer layers explode in a supernova, one of the most violent events in the universe. But the core continues collapsing, and collapsing, and collapsing. What stops it? In a normal star, nuclear fusion creates an outward pressure that balances gravity. In a white dwarf, electron degeneracy pressure holds it up, a quantum mechanical effect that prevents electrons from being squeezed too closely together. In a neutron star, even that fails, and matter compresses until protons and electrons merge into neutrons, packed so densely that a teaspoon of neutron star material would weigh 1 billion tons on Earth. But for the most massive stellar cores, even neutron degeneracy pressure isn't enough. Nothing is enough. Gravity wins. And the collapse continues past any known stopping point, past any theoretical limit. The matter doesn't compress into a small ball. It compresses into a point, an actual mathematical point with zero volume and infinite density, a singularity. This is what general relativity predicts. Einstein's equations, when applied to a collapsing massive object, show that the process doesn't stop. It can't stop. Once a certain threshold is crossed, once the object becomes dense enough that its escape velocity exceeds the speed of light, it forms an event horizon, a boundary beyond which nothing, not even light, can escape. And inside that boundary, the collapse continues until all the mass reaches the center and forms a singularity. But here's the problem: a point of infinite density makes no physical sense. Infinity isn't a number you can plug into equations and get meaningful results. When physicists see infinity in their calculations, it's usually a sign that something's wrong, that the theory has been pushed beyond its domain of validity, that new physics is needed. Yet general relativity insists the singularity is real. It's not an approximation, not a simplification. It's an unavoidable prediction of the mathematics. If general relativity is correct, and it has been tested to extraordinary precision in every regime where we can test it, then singularities must exist. Or must they? Because there's another theory that might have something to say about this: quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics doesn't like infinities either. In the quantum world, there are limits to how small and how dense things can get. The Planck length, roughly 1035 meters, represents a scale where quantum gravitational effects become dominant, where space itself becomes grainy and uncertain, where the smooth fabric of space-time described by general relativity breaks down into something else, something we don't fully understand. This is one of the great unsolved problems in physics. General relativity and quantum mechanics are both extraordinarily successful theories, but they're fundamentally incompatible. General relativity describes gravity as the curvature of smooth, continuous space-time. Quantum mechanics describes everything else, matter, energy, forces, in terms of discrete, probabilistic, quantized states. At ordinary scales, you can use one theory for gravity and the other for everything else, and the mismatch doesn't matter. But at extreme scales, inside black holes at the moment of the Big Bang, both theories should apply simultaneously. And when you try to combine them, the mathematics explodes into nonsense. This is why physicists are desperately searching for a theory of quantum gravity, a framework that unifies general relativity and quantum mechanics into a single coherent description. String theory is one attempt. Loop quantum gravity is another. Each approaches the problem differently, but both suggest that singularities might not be real, that when you account for quantum effects, the infinite densities predicted by general relativity are smoothed out, replaced by extremely dense but finite configurations of matter and energy. But we don't know. We can't know, because we can't see inside a black hole. The event horizon acts as a one-way membrane. Things can fall in, but no information can come out. Whatever happens at the singularity, whether it's truly infinite or merely extremely dense, is hidden from the outside universe forever. The laws of physics might be radically different in there, and we would have no way to find out, unless there's another kind of singularity, one that isn't hidden, one that was exposed to the entire universe. The Big Bang. Rewind the universe's expansion backward in time, every galaxy moving closer together, space contracting, temperature rising. Go back far enough and everything, all the matter, all the energy, all of space itself, converges to a point. A singularity, not hidden inside an event horizon this time, but naked, exposed, the origin point of everything, except it wasn't a point in space. It was all of space compressed to infinite density, which means it was everywhere. Which means the Big Bang happened at every location simultaneously. Your living room, the center of the sun, the Andromeda Galaxy, all of these locations, and every other location in the universe, occupied the same point 13.8 billion years ago. Can you visualize that? You can't. Nobody can. It's not a failure of imagination. It's a fundamental limitation of human cognition trying to grasp something that transcends spatial intuition. But there's something even stranger hiding in the mathematics of the Big Bang. Time itself becomes problematic. As you approach the moment of singularity, not only does space compress, but time dilates, slows, behaves in increasingly strange ways. At the singularity itself, general relativity says time simply ends, or begins, depending on which direction you're moving through the equations. There is no before the Big Bang in the classical sense, because time itself started at that moment. Imagine watching a film reel. Each frame is a moment in time, past, present, future, all existing simultaneously as physical objects, as patterns of light and shadow on celluloid. You experience them one at a time as the reel moves through the projector, creating the illusion of motion, of flow, of causality. But the frames themselves don't flow. They simply exist, laid out in sequence. Some physicists believe time works like this, that all moments, past, present, future, exist simultaneously in the structure of space-time. That the flow of time, the sense that the present moment is special and privileged, is an illusion created by consciousness. You feel like time flows because your awareness moves through the frames, but the frames themselves are eternal, unchanging, already written. This idea, called the block universe or eternalism, is taken seriously by many physicists and philosophers. It's consistent with special relativity, which shows that simultaneity is relative. Events that are simultaneous in one reference frame might not be in another. If there's no universal now, no absolute present moment that everyone agrees on, then maybe all moments are equally real. Maybe the past hasn't ceased to exist. Maybe the future hasn't yet come into being, because they're already here. All just different regions of the space-time block, all equally present, all equally actual. If this is true, then everything that has ever happened or will ever happen already exists. Your birth, your death, every decision you'll make, every thought you'll think. All of it already laid out in the four-dimensional structure of space-time. The universe isn't unfolding. It's static, eternal, complete. You're just experiencing one thin slice of it at a time, moving through the frames like a needle through a groove on a record. Does that terrify you? It should, because if the block universe is real, then free will might be an illusion. Your sense of making choices, of shaping the future through your decisions, it might be nothing more than a narrative your consciousness constructs as it moves through predetermined frames. The feeling of agency, of control, of possibility, all of it might be a trick of perspective, like watching a movie and feeling suspense even though the ending has already been filmed. But wait, because there's another interpretation, another way of understanding quantum mechanics that leads to a completely different picture of reality, one that's even stranger than the block universe. It's called the many worlds interpretation, and it suggests that every time a quantum event occurs, every time a particle could go left or right, every time an atom could decay or remain stable, every time any probabilistic quantum process could have multiple outcomes, the universe splits. Both outcomes happen, both become real, but in different branches of reality, different versions of the universe that diverge from that moment forward. According to this interpretation, there are no probabilities in the fundamental sense. There's no randomness. Every possible outcome of every quantum event actually occurs. It's just that they occur in different branches, different parallel universes that can no longer interact with each other. When you measure a quantum particle and find it in a particular state, it's not that the act of measurement collapsed a probability wave into a definite outcome, it's that the universe split into multiple branches, one for each possible outcome. And you, or rather the version of you doing the measuring, finds yourself in one specific branch. Think about what this means. Every second, the universe is splitting into an incomprehensibly vast number of branches. Every quantum interaction in every atom, in every object, everywhere in the universe creates new branches. The number of parallel universes is growing at a rate that makes exponential growth look sluggish. Not just doubling, not just tripling, but fragmenting into billions upon billions of new branches every instant. And all of these universes are real, not hypothetical, not imaginary, actually physically real, just as real as the universe you're in right now. There's a universe where you made a different choice 5 minutes ago. A universe where you don't exist because some quantum event in your parents' past went differently. A universe where Earth never formed. A universe where dinosaurs still roam. A universe for every possible configuration of quantum states, all branching and diverging and multiplying without end. Is this true? We don't know. Many worlds is a mathematically consistent interpretation of quantum mechanics. It makes the same predictions as other interpretations, which means we can't distinguish between them experimentally, at least not yet. Some physicists love it for its elegance and simplicity. Others hate it for its ontological extravagance, its multiplication of universes beyond necessity. But if it's true, then the multiverse isn't just a possibility, it's an inevitability. It's happening right now, constantly, everywhere. Reality isn't a single timeline, it's a vast, ever-branching tree of possibilities, with every branch as real as every other, all coexisting in the larger structure of the quantum multiverse. And here's the truly unsettling part. In an infinite multiverse, everything that can happen does happen. Every possible history plays out. Every possible version of you exists somewhere, including versions you can barely imagine. Versions where you made radically different choices. Versions where you became someone completely different. Versions where the fundamental constants of physics are slightly different, leading to universes with different stars, different chemistry, different possibilities for life. The multiverse doesn't just multiply the universe we know. It explores every variation, every permutation, every possible configuration of matter and energy and space-time allowed by the laws of physics. It's not just vast, it's exhaustive, comprehensive, total. But none of this answers the deepest questions. In fact, the more we learn, the more puzzling everything becomes, because every solution reveals new mysteries. Every answer spawns new questions, and some of these questions cut so deep that they threaten the foundations of everything we think we know. Start with this. Why does the universe exist at all? Why is there something rather than nothing? This isn't a religious question or a philosophical curiosity. It's a genuine scientific puzzle. The default state, the simplest possible state, is nothingness, no matter, no energy, no space, no time, no laws of physics, just absolute void. Yet here we are, in a universe filled with galaxies and stars and planets and life. What explains this? What caused existence to emerge from non-existence? Some physicists argue that nothing is unstable, that quantum mechanics allows for spontaneous creation of particle-antiparticle pairs from vacuum, that the universe might be a quantum fluctuation, a random bubble of space-time that inflated into the cosmos we observe. But this just pushes the question back one level. Why do those quantum laws exist? Why is there a quantum vacuum with specific properties that allow fluctuations? You haven't explained existence, you've just relabeled it. Others suggest that the universe is eternal, that it has always existed in some form, cycling through endless iterations of birth and death, Big Bang and Big Crunch, expansion and contraction forever, without beginning or end. But this creates its own paradoxes. If time is infinite into the past, then an infinite amount of time has already elapsed, which means that everything that could happen should have already happened an infinite number of times. We should exist in a maximally entropic heat-death universe where nothing interesting can occur anymore. Yet here we are, in a low-entropy structured universe filled with complexity and life. Why? This is called the Boltzmann brain problem, and it's more disturbing than it sounds. In an infinitely old universe, random fluctuations will occasionally create pockets of low entropy, temporary islands of order in a sea of chaos. Most of these fluctuations will be small. The smallest fluctuation capable of generating your current experience would be a single brain, spontaneously assembled by chance, complete with all your memories and thoughts, existing for just a moment before dissolving back into chaos. If the universe is eternal, there should be vastly more Boltzmann brains, randomly fluctuating consciousness existing for single instants, than real brains that evolve through billions of years of cosmic history, which means, statistically, you are almost certainly a Boltzmann brain. Your memories are false. Your perception of a stable external world is an illusion. You are a momentary fluctuation in the void, and a microsecond from now you will cease to exist. This is not a fringe idea. It's a serious problem that cosmologists worry about. And the fact that we can even formulate this problem, that our best theories lead to conclusions this absurd, tells you how far we are from truly understanding the nature of existence. Then there's the problem of fine-tuning, the fundamental constants of physics. Things like the strength of gravity, the mass of the electron, the charge of the proton, appear to be precisely calibrated to allow for the existence of complex structures like stars, planets, and life. Change any of these constants by even a small amount, and the universe becomes inhospitable. Make gravity slightly stronger, and stars burn out too quickly for life to evolve. Make it slightly weaker, and stars never form at all. Adjust the strong nuclear force, and atoms become unstable. Tweak the electromagnetic force, and chemistry doesn't work. The parameters seem too perfect, too precisely tuned, to be random, which leads to several possible explanations, none of them comforting. Maybe there's a deeper theory that explains why the constants must have these values, but we haven't found it. Maybe we live in a multiverse where different regions have different constants, and we inevitably find ourselves in a region compatible with our existence. But that doesn't explain why a multiverse exists or why it has the structure it does. Maybe the constants were set by some external intelligence or designer, but that just pushes the question back to explaining where that intelligence came from. Or maybe And this is the most unsettling possibility. Maybe the constants aren't fine-tuned at all. Maybe we're suffering from selection bias, noticing only the conditions that allow us to exist and incorrectly inferring design from the fact that we're here to observe them. Maybe universes with different constants exist, or did exist, or will exist, and we simply can't access them. Maybe we're mistaking an anthropic necessity for a cosmic coincidence. There's no consensus, no agreed-upon answer, just competing hypotheses, each with its own uncomfortable implications. And then there's consciousness, the hardest problem of all. You are experiencing something right now. There is a subjective quality to your existence, a what-it-is-likeness to being you. When you see red, you have an experience of redness. When you feel pain, there's something it feels like to be in pain. This subjective experience, this qualia, as philosophers call it, seems fundamentally different from physical processes. Your brain is made of atoms. Atoms are made of quantum fields. Quantum fields obey mathematical laws. Nowhere in those laws is there anything that looks like experience. Nowhere in the equations is there anything that explains why certain configurations of matter should give rise to subjective awareness. You can describe the neural correlates of consciousness, the brain states associated with specific experiences, but describing the correlation doesn't explain it. Why should this particular pattern of neural firing feel like anything at all? Some philosophers argue that consciousness might be fundamental, like space and time and matter, that it's not something that emerges from complex arrangements of unconscious particles, but something woven into the fabric of reality from the start. Others propose that consciousness is an illusion, that the feeling of subjective experience is just a trick your brain plays on itself, a narrative constructed from sensory inputs and memories. Still others suggest that the problem is unsolvable, that consciousness is forever beyond the reach of scientific explanation, because you can't reduce the subjective to the objective without losing the very thing you're trying to explain. But here's where it connects to infinity. If consciousness is real, if subjective experience is a genuine feature of reality, then what happens in an infinite universe? Are there infinite conscious beings, infinite experiences, infinite perspectives on existence? And if the many worlds interpretation is correct, are there infinite copies of your consciousness branching off every moment, each having slightly different experiences, each convinced they're the real you? What does identity even mean in such a context? If there are infinite versions of you scattered across the multiverse, which one is really you? All of them? None of them? Is there a fact of the matter, or is personal identity just a useful fiction we tell ourselves to make sense of a fundamentally fragmented existence? These aren't just abstract puzzles. They have real implications for how we understand meaning, morality, and purpose. If every possible version of your life exists somewhere in the multiverse, do your choices matter? If the universe is deterministic, already laid out in the block of space-time, then is moral responsibility an illusion? If consciousness is just atoms obeying physical laws, then what grounds human dignity, rights, or values? The deeper we probe into the nature of reality, the more we find that our common-sense intuitions about causality, about time, about identity, about existence itself are inadequate. Not just incomplete, but fundamentally wrong. Built for survival in a medium-sized world of medium-speed objects, not for understanding the cosmos at its deepest levels. We've discovered that reality is stranger than we imagined, stranger than we can imagine. That the universe operates on principles that make no intuitive sense. That the answers to our biggest questions might themselves be paradoxes, contradictions, impossible truths that our minds struggle to hold simultaneously. And we haven't even reached the final question yet. The one that brings all of this together. The one that asks whether infinity itself, already so vast and incomprehensible, might not be the end of the story. What if infinity is just the beginning? Stop reading for a moment. Look at your hands. Move your fingers. Feel the weight of your body in space. Listen to your breathing. This is you. This is real. This moment right now is happening. You exist. You are here, or are you? Because everything we've just explored, the block universe, the quantum multiverse, the infinite cosmos, the mathematical hierarchies of infinity, every single one of these ideas carries an implication that should terrify you. Not the superficial fear of darkness or death, but something deeper. Something that reaches into the core of what you believe about yourself and tears it apart. If the block universe is real, then this moment you're experiencing, this sensation of now, this feeling that the present is somehow special, somehow more real than the past or future, is a lie, an illusion, a trick of consciousness. You think you're making choices, deciding what to do next, shaping your future through free will. But in the block universe, your entire life already exists. Past, present, and future are equally real, equally fixed, laid out in the four-dimensional structure of space-time, like a sculpture you can't see all at once, because your consciousness only experiences one thin slice at a time, which means that everything you will ever do, you have already done. In the higher dimensional view, from outside time, your life is complete, finished. Your death has already happened. It exists right now, just a few decades forward in the block, as real and solid as your birth. You're not moving toward it. You're not approaching it through time. You're already there. You've always been there. The version of you reading these words and the version of you dying are both equally present in the eternal structure of space-time. Can you feel it? That sensation of the ground dropping away beneath you? That vertiginous realization that everything you think about yourself, your agency, your choices, your trajectory through time, might be nothing more than a perspective trick? You're not a being moving through time. You're a four-dimensional object, a static structure extending from birth to death, and consciousness is just a flashlight moving along that structure, illuminating one moment at a time, creating the illusion of flow where there is only frozen geometry. Your past hasn't vanished. It's still there, still real, still existing in the same way the future exists. When you remember something, you're not accessing a ghost or a recording. You're experiencing a direct connection to a region of space-time that is as present as this moment. Your childhood, your first love, your deepest regrets, they're not gone. They're eternal, unchanging, forever fixed in the block. Does that comfort you? That everything you've loved still exists somewhere in the structure? Or does it horrify you? That everything you've suffered also persists eternally in the four-dimensional sculpture of your life? But it gets worse. Because if the many worlds interpretation is correct, you don't just exist once. You exist an incomprehensible number of times. Every quantum event that could have gone differently did go differently in another branch of reality. Which means there are versions of you where every coin flip went the other way, where every random event played out differently, where every choice you made you also didn't make. Think about the biggest decision you've ever made. The one that changed everything, the choice that determined who you became, who you loved, what you did with your life. Now understand that in the quantum multiverse you also made the opposite choice. Both versions of you exist. Both are equally real. One isn't a hypothetical, a might have been, a road not taken. It's an actual person, living an actual life with actual experiences and emotions and memories, existing in a parallel branch of reality you can never access. Every version of your life is being lived. The best possible version where everything went right, the worst possible version where everything went wrong, and infinite gradations between them. Versions where you died young, versions where you lived to 100, versions where you never existed at all because some quantum fluctuation prevented your parents from meeting. So which one is you? Which one is the real you? All of them? None of them? Is there even a meaningful distinction? Because from a higher perspective, from outside the branching structure of the multiverse, all these versions are just different paths through the quantum landscape. No one path is privileged. No one branch is the real timeline. They're all equally valid, all equally actual. Your identity, the thing you think of as fundamentally uniquely you, is distributed across infinite branches of reality, each version convinced it's the only one, each experiencing itself as the continuous thread of consciousness, each unaware of the countless other versions living parallel lives. Does that mean you don't matter? That your choices are meaningless because every other choice is also being made by some other you? Or does it mean the opposite? That you matter more because you're part of an infinite tapestry, one thread among countless threads, all of them necessary to complete the pattern. And now layer this on top. If the universe is spatially infinite, then there are also infinite physical copies of you. Not quantum branches, but actual duplicates, far away in space. Beyond the observable universe, living lives identical or similar to yours. Because in an infinite universe with finite possible arrangements of atoms, every configuration must repeat. Must. The number of ways atoms can be arranged is vast but finite. The volume of space, if infinite, is infinite. Infinite space divided by finite possibilities equals infinite repetition. Somewhere out there, trillions upon trillions of light years away, there is another you. Same atoms, same memories, same thoughts, reading these exact words at this exact moment, and another you beyond that, and another, an infinite number of yous, scattered across the infinite expanse, each one convinced they're the original. Each one experiencing themselves as unique. You are not rare. You are not special. You are inevitable. You are infinite. Let that sink in. Really feel it. The person you think of as you, your memories, your personality, your quirks and flaws and dreams, is being experienced by infinite beings across infinite space and infinite quantum branches. Your life, your exact life, has been lived before and will be lived again and is being lived right now in countless other locations and timelines. You are one instance of a pattern that repeats endlessly throughout the cosmos. What does that do to meaning? To significance? If everything you've ever done has been done infinite times before and will be done infinite times again, does it matter? Does anything matter? Or is mattering itself an illusion, a local phenomenon of consciousness that vanishes when you zoom out to the cosmic scale? Some people find this liberating. If nothing matters on the cosmic scale, then you're free to create your own meaning. Free to live however you want without worrying about some grand cosmic purpose. Others find it devastating. If nothing matters, then why get up in the morning? Why strive? Why create? Why love? Why do anything? But here's the thing they don't tell you. Mattering isn't binary. It's not all or nothing. The fact that the universe is vast and indifferent doesn't erase the local significance of your experiences. The pain you feel is real. The joy you experience is real. The connections you make with other conscious beings are real. They might not be cosmically significant. They might not register on the universe's ledger, but they register on yours. And that's enough. That has to be enough, because the alternative is paralysis. The alternative is staring into the abyss of cosmic meaninglessness until it swallows you whole. And the abyss is staring back. Can you feel it? That presence, that weight of infinite space pressing in from all directions? You're not just on a planet orbiting a star. You're floating in an ocean of darkness so vast that all the light of all the stars ever born barely illuminates a fraction of it. You're suspended in a void that extends forever in every direction, containing structures so large they make galaxies look like dust motes, separated by emptiness so complete that matter itself is a statistical anomaly. Right now, above your head, space extends upward forever, below your feet, downward forever. In every direction you could point, space continues beyond the reach of light, beyond the horizon of observation, beyond the limits of comprehension. You are infinitely small in an infinitely large cosmos. You are infinitely brief in an infinitely long timeline. You are a fluctuation, a temporary configuration of atoms that will disperse and rearrange and forget they were ever you. The universe doesn't know you exist. It doesn't care. It's not cruel. Cruelty requires intention. It's simply indifferent, vast beyond measure and utterly, completely indifferent to your suffering, your joy, your existence, and yet, you are the universe experiencing itself. Every atom in your body was forged in the heart of a dying star. You are stardust, arranged in a pattern complex enough to think, to feel, to wonder about its own origins. The universe has been evolving for 13.8 billion years, and one of the things it has produced is you, a conscious being capable of understanding its own cosmic insignificance, capable of looking into the abyss and not just comprehending it, but measuring it, mapping it, naming it. You contain infinity, not metaphorically, literally. Between any 2 points in your body there are infinite points. The mathematical structure of space means that the distance from your head to your feet contains an infinite number of locations. The duration of your life contains an infinite number of instants. You are a finite being composed of infinite components, and your consciousness, whatever it is, wherever it comes from, experiences something that might be impossible to replicate with any amount of atoms or any configuration of quantum fields. You have subjective experience. There is something it is like to be you, and that something, that felt quality of existence, might be the most mysterious phenomenon in the entire universe. We can explain stars. We can explain galaxies. We can trace the evolution of the cosmos from microseconds after the Big Bang to the present day. But we cannot explain why you feel anything at all. Why there should be an inner experience corresponding to certain physical processes. Why consciousness exists instead of everything just happening in the dark, mechanically, without anyone experiencing it. What if, and this is speculation, not science, but follow the thought, what if consciousness is fundamental? What if it's woven into reality at the deepest level? What if the universe isn't a dead mechanism but something alive, something experiencing itself through every conscious being that has ever existed or will ever exist? What if you're not a separate thing observing the universe from outside, but a temporary localization of the universe's self-awareness? What if the boundary between you and the cosmos is an illusion, and at the deepest level, there is only one consciousness experiencing itself from infinite perspectives? This idea appears in various forms across philosophy and mysticism. The notion that separation is illusion, that the many are actually one, that when you look into another person's eyes, the same consciousness looks back, not the same thoughts or memories or personality, but the same fundamental awareness, the same capacity for experience, the same light of consciousness shining through different configurations of matter. If this is true, then you've never been alone. You've never been separate. You are the universe, experiencing itself as a human for a brief moment before returning to the whole. If this is false, then you are alone, trapped in a skull, experiencing a private world of qualia that no one else can access, fundamentally isolated from every other consciousness, able to communicate but never truly able to share the felt quality of experience. Which is more terrifying, being eternally alone or being eternally connected to everything, unable to ever truly die because death is just a transition from one perspective to another? There's no answer, no resolution, just the weight of the question pressing down on you, forcing you to confront what you really believe about yourself, your place in the cosmos, the nature of existence. You are impossibly small and impossibly significant. You are nothing and everything. You are a fleeting pattern in an eternal cosmos. You are the cosmos itself, briefly aware of its own existence. Both are true, both are false, both are inadequate to capture the full reality of what you are. And somewhere in that tension, in that paradox, in that impossible space between insignificance and infinity, you exist, reading these words, feeling the vertigo, staring into the abyss and recognizing it as both foreign and familiar, as both other and self. The universe is not just bigger than you imagined, it's stranger, deeper, more layered, more paradoxical, and you, small, fragile, temporary you, are part of it, not separate from it, not external to it, part of it, made of it, expressing it. Does that terrify you? It should, but it should also fill you with wonder, because in the entire history of the cosmos, in all the infinite spaces and times and quantum branches, there has never been and will never be another moment exactly like this one. This precise configuration of atoms, experiencing this precise thought, in this precise instant. You are unique and you are infinite. You are impossible and you are inevitable, and the mystery is only beginning. And now we arrive at the edge, the final precipice, the place where even the concept of infinity begins to crack and reveal something underneath, something that changes everything. Because here's what we haven't told you yet. Here's the secret that physicists whisper about in the margins of their equations, the possibility so strange that even mentioning it feels like crossing a threshold into forbidden territory. Infinity might not be the largest thing. It might not even be large at all. Remember Cantor's hierarchy? The ladder of infinities stretching upward forever, each rung larger than the last. Mathematicians have explored this landscape for over a century, mapping its structure, discovering its properties, and buried in that exploration is a discovery so profound, so reality-shattering, that it suggests our entire universe, infinite as it might be, could be nothing more than a single point in a larger structure. A structure so vast that calling it infinite doesn't even begin to describe it. It's called the Mathematical Multiverse. Not the quantum multiverse of branching timelines, not the inflationary multiverse of bubble universes. Something bigger, something that contains all possible mathematical structures as actual physical realities. The idea is this. Mathematics isn't something we invented, it's something we discovered. Mathematical truths exist independently of human minds. The Pythagorean theorem was true before humans existed, will be true after we're gone, would be true even if the universe never existed. Mathematical structures have a reality that transcends physical instantiation. But if mathematical structures are real, then why should only one of them be physically instantiated? Why should only our universe, with our specific laws of physics and our particular configuration of forces and constants, be the one that exists? What makes it special? The answer, according to the mathematical multiverse hypothesis proposed by physicist Max Tegmark, is nothing. Our universe isn't special. Every coherent mathematical structure exists as a physical universe, not as a possibility, not as an abstraction, as an actual concrete reality, just as real as the universe you inhabit right now. Imagine every possible geometry: Euclidean space, hyperbolic space, spherical space, spaces with 4 dimensions, with 5, with 10, with 1,000. Everyone exists as a physical universe. Imagine every possible set of physical laws. Universes where electromagnetism is stronger, where gravity is weaker, where quantum mechanics works differently, where there are additional forces we can't even imagine. Every coherent variation exists, and not just small variations, completely alien. Physics. Universes where time has multiple dimensions. Universes where cause and effect work backwards. Universes with mathematical structures so different from ours that the word universe barely applies. Realities that don't have space or time at all, but some completely different organizing principle we don't have language for. All of it exists. All of it is real. The totality of existence isn't the universe. It isn't even the multiverse. It's the mathematical landscape, infinite dimensional, containing every possible structure, every possible pattern, every possible configuration of abstract relations that can be consistently defined. And our universe, with all its galaxies, all its infinite space, all its quantum branches, is one point in that landscape, one structure among infinitely many. Our infinity is a grain of sand on an infinite beach of infinities. Can you grasp what this means? Can you feel the scale of it? You thought the observable universe was vast, then you learned it might be infinite. Then you discovered there might be infinite universes in the quantum multiverse. And now you're confronting the possibility that all of existence as we know it, every universe, every timeline, every possible configuration of matter and energy, all of it together is just one mathematical structure among infinite mathematical structures, each one as real as ours, each one containing its own versions of infinity. The hierarchy doesn't end. It can't end. For every level you reach, there's another level above it. For every infinity you comprehend, there's a larger infinity containing it. For every multiverse you conceive, there's a meta-multiverse encompassing it. And somewhere in that vast landscape, there might be structures that contain consciousness, not life as we know it, not brains made of atoms obeying quantum mechanics, but other forms of awareness, other types of experience, emerging from completely different mathematical substrates. Beings that don't exist in space or time, but in some other dimensional framework we can't visualize. Consciousness is so alien that communication would be impossible, understanding inconceivable, yet they're just as real, just as aware, just as convinced of their own existence as you are of yours. What if, and this is the thought that should stop your heart, what if our entire universe, everything we call reality, is a simulation running in one of these higher structures, not a simulation in the sense of a computer program, but something deeper, a mathematical pattern instantiated in some larger mathematical space, experienced from the inside as physical reality, but from the outside visible as pure abstraction. This isn't science fiction. It's a serious philosophical position called mathematical Platonism, and variations of it are held by many physicists and mathematicians. The simulation hypothesis takes it one step further, suggesting that advanced civilizations might create simulated universes, and if they can, they probably do, which means there are vastly more simulated universes than base-level physical ones, which means, statistically, you're almost certainly in a simulation. But it's worse than that, because if our universe is a simulation, then the universe running our simulation might also be a simulation, and that one might be a simulation in yet another universe. The stack could go up infinitely. Simulations within simulations within simulations, turtles all the way up, with no base reality at the bottom, or top, or anywhere. Is there a ground, a foundation, a lowest level where physical reality is just physical, not simulated, not mathematical, not abstracted? Or is it simulations all the way down and all the way up, an infinite regress of structures containing structures containing structures? We don't know. We can't know, because from inside any level, it looks like base reality. The simulation is perfect, seamless, indistinguishable from the real thing, if there even is a real thing to distinguish it from. Now imagine standing outside all of this, outside the mathematical multiverse, outside the hierarchy of simulations, outside every structure we've described. Imagine looking at the totality of existence, every universe, every infinity, every level of abstraction, as a single, unified object. What would you see? Maybe nothing. Maybe the view from outside existence is literally nothing because outside doesn't exist. Space, time, causality, structure, all of it might be internal to existence. There might be no perspective from which to view the whole because perspective itself is part of what you're trying to view. Or maybe you'd see something impossible, something that transcends every category we have for understanding, not infinite, not finite, something else. Something that makes the distinction between infinite and finite seem quaint, provincial, laughably inadequate. Some mystics and philosophers call this the absolute, the ground of being, the source from which all structures emerge and to which they all return. It's not a thing within existence. It's not even existence itself. It's the fact that there is existence rather than nothing, the incomprehensible mystery that anything is at all. And here's the final twist, the revelation that brings us full circle. You might be it, not you the individual, not you the human, not you the collection of atoms and thoughts and memories, but the awareness reading these words, the consciousness experiencing this moment, that might be the absolute, experiencing itself from one particular perspective, in one particular structure, in one particular moment. When you ask what is beyond infinity, you might be the answer asking the question. Picture it now, not with your mind can't hold it, but with something deeper. Picture the totality of existence, every universe, every timeline, every mathematical structure, every simulation, every level of infinity, all of it together forming a single incomprehensible whole. And that whole is somehow aware, somehow experiencing itself. And you, this temporary localization of awareness reading these words, are one of the ways it experiences itself. The universe isn't just vast, it's not just infinite, it's not just layered with infinities upon infinities. It's aware, it's conscious, it's looking at itself through your eyes right now, wondering what it is, where it came from, what lies beyond. There is no beyond, because beyond implies separation, and there's nothing separate from the totality. Everything that could exist does exist, not somewhere else but right here, right now, in the infinite dimensionality of the mathematical landscape. Past and future, here and there, possible and impossible, all of it exists simultaneously in the eternal structure. You are not in the universe. You are not even part of the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself from one infinitesimal perspective among infinite perspectives, each one convinced it's separate. Each one fundamentally the same awareness looking out through different eyes. And if that's true, if consciousness is fundamental, if awareness is woven into the deepest structure of reality, then death isn't an ending, it's a transition, The particular pattern that is you dissolves, but the awareness continues because it was never really yours. It was always the universe's, temporarily localized, briefly individuated, now returning to the source. Or maybe not. Maybe consciousness really does end at death. Maybe this speculation is just the human mind, desperately trying to find meaning in a meaningless cosmos, projecting awareness onto a universe that is fundamentally dead, mechanical, indifferent. We don't know. And that's the point. That's the final revelation. After everything we've learned, after mapping the cosmos, measuring its age, tracing its history, exploring its structure, we still don't know the most important things. We don't know if the universe, infinite. We don't know if consciousness is fundamental. We don't know if there's something beyond infinity. We don't know what we are, where we came from, or what happens when we die. We've built telescopes that can see billions of light years. We've built particle accelerators that can probe the quantum realm. We've developed mathematics that can describe structures beyond human comprehension. And yet the deepest mysteries remain, not because we're not smart enough, not because we haven't looked hard enough, but because some questions might not have answers, or might have answers that transcend the capacity of any finite mind to grasp. So we're left here, you and I, standing at the edge of everything we know, staring into the infinite dark, asking questions that echo into the void without response. Is there something beyond infinity? Yes, no, both, neither. The question itself might be malformed based on assumptions that don't hold at the deepest levels of reality. But here's what we do know. Existence is stranger than we imagined, vaster than we conceived, more layered, more paradoxical, more mysterious than any human explanation can capture, and somewhere in that mystery, in that incomprehensible vastness, you exist. Reading these words, feeling the vertigo, staring into the abyss and recognizing it as both other and self. If the universe is infinite, then somewhere out there, beyond the observable horizon, beyond the reach of light, another version of you just finished reading this exact sentence. And another is about to start. And another will never read it at all. Infinite yous, infinite choices, infinite timelines, infinite universes, infinite infinities, stretching up through mathematical heaven, all of it real, all of it happening, all of it now. The universe doesn't end. It expands, forever, in every direction, through every dimension, across every level of existence. And you, impossible, temporary, infinite you, are the universe experiencing that expansion. From the inside, there is no beyond. There is only deeper, only stranger, only more, always more. So where does that leave us? After journeying through infinities, after confronting paradoxes that shatter understanding, after staring into the mathematical abyss and glimpsing structures so vast they make our cosmos look like a single atom, where do we stand now? Right back where we started. Except everything has changed. You began this journey thinking you understood infinity, a concept, an abstraction, the biggest thing imaginable. Now you know it's not one thing but many, not an endpoint but a ladder, not the edge of reality but a doorway into deeper mysteries. Infinity has layers, dimensions, hierarchies that extend forever upward, each level transcending the one below in ways that make larger seem inadequate to describe the relationship. You learned that the universe might be infinite in space, extending forever in all directions, containing infinite galaxies, infinite stars, infinite copies of you living infinite variations of your life. You discovered that time might be infinite too, or might be an illusion entirely, a perspective trick played by consciousness moving through the static geometry of space-time. You confronted the quantum multiverse, where reality branches with every measurement, spawning infinite timelines, infinite versions of every possible event. You glimpse the mathematical multiverse, where every coherent structure exists as a physical universe, creating a landscape of realities so diverse that our universe is just one point among infinite points. And you face the deepest question of all: what lies beyond? What transcends infinity itself? The answer isn't simple. It's not comfortable. It might be that there is no beyond, that infinity is self-contained, that the totality of existence loops back on itself in ways we can't visualize. Or it might be that beyond infinity lies something we don't have words for, something that makes the infinite finite by comparison. A metastructure so encompassing that all our infinities together constitute a single point within it. We don't know. And perhaps that's how it should be. Because the moment we think we've reached the final answer, we've stopped asking questions. We've stopped exploring. We've stopped pushing against the boundaries of understanding. The universe doesn't owe us comprehensibility. It doesn't owe us answers. It simply is, vast beyond measure, strange beyond imagining, layered with mysteries that might take civilizations millions of years to unravel, if they can be unraveled at all. But here's what matters: we're asking, we're looking, we're using mathematics and physics and relentless curiosity to probe realities that our ancestors couldn't even conceive. Every generation pushes a little further, sees a little deeper, grasps structures that the previous generation thought impossible. What will we discover next? What lies waiting in the equations we haven't solved yet? What revelations hide in the data we haven't collected? What understandings will emerge when we finally develop a theory of quantum gravity, when we directly detect dark matter, when we probe the interior of black holes or witness the birth of new universes? We're living at a unique moment in cosmic history. The universe is old enough that complex structures have formed. Stars, planets, life, consciousness, but young enough that there's still energy, still gradients, still the possibility of growth and exploration. Billions of years from now, when the last stars burn out and the cosmos descends into cold, empty darkness, no civilization will be able to do what we're doing right now. No consciousness will be able to look up at a sky filled with galaxies and wonder about its origins. We have this moment, this brief window of cosmic time, this opportunity to ask the biggest questions and push toward answers. So I'm asking you, don't stop here. Don't let this be the end of your journey into the infinite. Keep questioning, keep wondering. Keep pushing against the edges of what you understand. Ask yourself, if infinity is real, what does that mean for how I live my life? If consciousness is fundamental, what does that imply about my relationship to the cosmos? If every possible version of me exists somewhere in the multiverse, which version do I want to be? These aren't just abstract philosophical puzzles. They're questions about meaning, about purpose, about how you navigate existence, knowing what you now know about the universe's true scale and strangeness. You're not separate from this mystery. You're part of it, made of it, expressing it. Every thought you have, every choice you make, every moment you experience is the universe experiencing itself. You are the cosmos looking back at itself and asking, what am I? Where did I come from? What lies beyond? And somewhere in the infinite expanse, perhaps closer than you think, perhaps impossibly far away, other consciousnesses are asking the same questions, looking up at their own skies, mapping their own cosmologies, confronting their own infinities. Maybe they've found answers we haven't. Maybe they're as lost as we are. Maybe the questions themselves are eternal, asked and re-asked by every conscious civilization that emerges from the cosmic dark, each one pushing a little further before vanishing back into the void. But the questions persist. The mystery endures. The exploration continues. Because here's the final truth, the one that ties everything together. The universe may have no end, no boundary, no final answer, no ultimate resolution. But maybe, just maybe, neither do you. The journey doesn't finish here. It expands, deepens, branches into infinite new territories of thought and discovery. Infinity isn't the end of the story. It's where the story begins. And you, impossible, temporary, infinite you, are still writing it.